Hello and welcome to an unexpected podcast. My name is Tim, and with me as always we have Rainier, and joining us we have Evan Iverson and Robert Cron as always. On this week's episode we're going to be going over the Moria Warriors as well as some list reviews we have for Moria in case you're interested in taking a list for them. But our list review is from Peter Holden, so I'll just pull it up real quick and we'll go over that. His list is Durbers with 12 goblins with shield and spear, 2 bat swarms, a warg marauder, the Watcher, the Mouth of Sauron with 13 black Numenorians, 1 black Numenorian with banner and 1 black Numenorian with warhorn, and an orc taskmaster with 9 orc trackers at 800 points. He has 43 models, 7 might, 11 bows, and some tentacles. So with this list, you have the terror aspect with the black Numenorians, and you have the bat swarms to mitigate people's fight values as well as get behind lines and go to objectives, anything like that. Obviously, he's going to be using the goblins to back up the black Numenorians, so then that way he gets rank and file. And then the Watcher and trackers, I'm assuming, are just to, well, the Watchers to do damage, of course, and then the trackers are there to just boost up the numbers / do a little damage from range. I think with this kind of list, you could do well with this at a tournament, I believe, because I don't know many people that have gone against the Watcher, and if they have, I would probably argue maybe if you go to a tournament, 20% of people have gone up against the Watcher, so you'll really throw people off with it. And you combine that with the fact that you do have a terror front line at Fight 4. You have a banner in there for the Watcher, for the Mouth of Sauron, for Durbers, or anything else. You do have a couple of shots. You have the Taskmaster to help out with might, because I believe you have, was it 2? How many? Watcher has how many points on might again, guys?
1.
Just one.
Okay, so 1, I believe the Mouth has 2, Durbers has 3, so we'll say about 7 might. Oh, it says at the bottom. That's me being ridiculous. So 7 might with free might. So let's assume you get 2 points of might. So you're up to 9 might for free. So I mean, it's a decent list. Rob, what do you think of it?
So mechanically, just one quick thing. I think it might be slightly over bow limit with the 9 trackers in the Moria contingent. I think.
Yeah, that's
I think you only have a bow limit of 8.
Yeah, that's correct.
But I mean, that's not a huge deal and doesn't fundamentally change the way that the list would play. You just throwing in another orc or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
just do naked orcs and it's the same points.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. But other than that, I mean, it really comes down to the Watcher Bat Swarm combo, which is very nasty. And if you've ever played against it, no hero is safe, right? Because once the Watcher grabs them and pulls them in with a Bat Swarm, it's usually a pretty bad day. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I like the Taskmaster there just to help out with the might, especially since the Watcher itself doesn't have a lot of might. Durbers is always a solid buy. It's definitely unconventional, right? Mm-hmm. It's a very different take on the terror wall, and usually you see the terror wall with a beastie that's not the Watcher. So I think it'll throw a lot of people off guard because they'll see it and be like, what is this and how do I play against it? You don't really play against it any different than you would any other Watcher-based list, but the fact that you see a bunch of black Numenorians would throw you off, right? So
yeah. Yeah, go Rainier. You go ahead.
So I'm curious. Did he mention which one is his leader, Durbers or the Mouth of Sauron?
He does
not. No.
Yeah, that's kind of tricky situation too, because the Mouth is like a caster. You're not gonna. Well, he is fight 5, but you're not gonna throw him into combat. And Durbers is your only heroic strike in a way. So I'm not sure which one. What do you guys think of that? Which one would you choose?
I think I personally would pick probably Durbers.
Yeah, I think I'd go Durbers.
It's a good question. I think Durbers
heroic for defense.
Yeah, heroic defense. Yep. He's got more might points. And he's got, what is he, fight 4? So he's less likely to actually be used in combat. Where the Mouth of Sauron, fight 5, you might find uses for that. Though, I mean, Really, I think you could go either way. It's not a huge difference. You can play them both in the same way, which is very conservatively if they're your leader. So I guess just going over less of the big picture with this list, but more of the small, finicky stuff. I don't like the Warhorn personally. I don't think you need it. Black Numenorians are Courage 4. I think they'll do the job just fine. You don't need them to be Courage 5. I get that, like, oh, you want the Bat Swarms to be higher Courage because they're Courage 2. But the main trick with the Bat Swarms is you're going to be dragging somebody into them with the Watcher, so it really doesn't matter. Also, I would recommend dropping the Warhorn and maybe with that points changing the goblins, one of the goblins with Shield and Spear, into another Warg Marauder or another Bat Swarm or something like that. Also, I would recommend dropping the banner off of a Black Numenorian and sticking in like maybe a normal Orc and the Orc Taskmaster's Warband to replace one of the trackers that is above your bow limit, just so you have your banner on a spear that isn't going to be in the front line using their fight 4. Yeah.
What do you guys think about this as a concept? So maybe you drop the Warg Marauder and you drop the Warhorn, and then you get rid of the Orc trackers, and then you basically would have enough points for a full warband of Morannons. Would you guys rather see that?
I think I'd rather see that, to be honest. And I was thinking
Yeah, I think
something
so.
similar as we were going through the list, because the trackers, they're bolstering for the number, and I can see his concept of, and I'm not sure where he's from, and there's different metas we've talked about in different countries, but it does seem like he's going for the concept of Black Numenorian, Shield Wall, Terror, Harbinger. The trackers shoot from that shield wall. I just don't see that as effective at like 800 points, and you really only see like the Watcher as the only output for killing things. So I would bolster them with Morannons. 1, it gives you more people, and 2, gives you strength 4 to actually kill stuff.
And not only that, but it makes your front line a little bit harder to break through, because now your entire front line would be defense 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so shooting isn't as big of a deal to you as well. And then when you get those, because if you get the Orc trackers in combat, they're kind of done. So you would try to keep them away from combat, but at the same time, it's like you're paying 5 points for a model that you're essentially trying to stop from fighting.
And I like that idea too, because it's like I play Black Numenorians, and they hold the line pretty well, but they don't break the line. And those Morannons in the back with the strength 4 will make that like terror wall even dangerous, because then you're not just using it as a defensive post, you're using it as you're advancing. So yeah, I really like that idea actually, Tim.
Yeah, the whole point of like a Watcher list is the Watcher is great at grinding. He's great at getting as many turns as possible and using those turns to grab models from behind the battle line, grab spear supports, grab banners, grab heroes, grab anything. And the more time you give him to be able to do that, the better you're going to do. So I would recommend just trying to take as many bulky high defense models as you possibly can in order to give the Watcher time to do what the Watcher needs to do. But I would also definitely agree with Rainier that I think you're going to struggle without at least some sort of secondary threat. Because sure, the Watcher is great and all, but sometimes they can just be super unreliable. And then if you lose the Watcher, you're basically screwed. So, I mean, that could be anything. It could be giving the Mouth of Sauron an armored horse. It could be taking like a Shagrat or something. And well, actually, Shagrat's a hero of fortitude, so that probably wouldn't work. But
what about this? What about this,
like
Evan? Shagrat for the Taskmaster, because the Taskmaster and the Warg Marauder, I'm looking through right now. Shaggy's only like 100 points, 115 if you max him out.
Yeah, 115. Taskmaster's
Evan, like
50.
50,
well,
and
So
35 for the
65 points. Marauder is 30. And then Warhorn's 30, and then you drop the tracker.
I just like Shagrat too, because it's like he can get in those little those little tiny like avenues and stuff. when you're like condensing. Like, I don't know.
What do you guys think about?
think,
and I get the Shagrat thing, but what do you guys think about a budget Wraith instead of the Taskmaster? You get the 2 might, you get the -1 for the Black Numenorians,
2 casters too,
and then you have 2 casters to kind of help out the Watcher, and then with the Bat Swarms.
I actually think that that's a good idea, but I would probably replace the Mouth of Sauron with a Wraith instead. So when you look at this list,
Well, remember, you need
a
a hero of valor, so it would have to be a named wraith.
Ah, that's right, because he's not the generics are.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason, well, but hear me out. So we're gonna put in Shagrat. Oh wait, he's Fortitude.
Yep,
that's right. Shagrat is Fortitude.
Yeah,
so,
unfortunately, with the new setup,
which is really bizarre, but.
Oh,
what if you just bring in Dalmir with a whole bunch of Black Numenorians and Arbalisters? Oh yeah.
I mean, my immediate reaction, and that's just me being a Mordor player and being set in my ways, is drop the Warhorn, drop the Warg Marauder, drop maybe a bit of other guys, and then drop the Mouth of Sauron and take the Shadow Lord on Fellbeast, and then you get the shooting. Take the ability to take away shooting with the Shadow Lord. You can drop the shields off of the 12 goblins, because the only reason you're taking the shields is to deal with bowfire. And then you get a hitter, you get a strong caster, and you get all this useful stuff that you get from the Shadow Lord. And well, that's what I would do. But
okay, so you're saying drop the Taskmaster, the Trackers, the Warhorn, and the Warg Marauder for the Shadow Lord on Fellbeast, right?
Well, I was saying drop the Mouth of Sauron and then the Warhorn and the Warg Marauder for the Wraith on Fellbeast.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just feel like the Mouth of Sauron is not good enough to carry it, whereas I think a Wraith would probably be better for this list overall. Plus, it gives you, like just another threat. I like Shagrat, but him being Fortitude kind of throws everything off. And I would love to actually get what's his face, the Goblin Shaman that enrages all the beasts, Druzag. I would love if you could take Druzag so that those bat swarms, could be like mini threats on the side. But he, I believe, is also Fortitude, right? So that doesn't work either.
Well, I mean, it does work because Durber is a hero of valor.
But you would probably have to replace him.
If you replaced
right?
him, then absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually,
yeah.
Shadow Lord on Fellbeast though is interesting because
I like that better actually.
With the Bat Swarm, makes him like
you still get the benefit of my point, which was to get the -1 and another caster. And then you get the benefit of a Fellbeast, of course, and you help with shooting to mitigate the numbers dying off. And
well, you also you get a bit of mobility because one of the weaknesses of the Watcher is once he's up, he's basically stationary, right? He doesn't move very fast, so you can't spread that threat to a lot of places. So a lot of times you kind of wait for him to pop up and then get out of his threat range, right? But having a flying Fellbeast around makes that a lot tougher.
Here, let's table this discussion for now, because I actually have something. I have a list that is somewhat similar mechanically to this, and we can reopen that discussion when we discuss my list. So how about let's move on to the Moria Warriors.
Okay, so Peter, I think we're all in agreement to drop the Warg Marauder, maybe change the Orc Trackers into something else, but if not, maybe consider dropping the Mouth of Sauron, the Warhorn, and getting a Shadow Lord on Fellbeast to give you a little bit more hitting power, protection, and give your Black Numenorians the -1 to help them out with people not charging them. Let us know.
Remember,
what you
the
do
Watcher has Harbinger as well, so that doesn't really apply.
Okay, that's true. Yep. But let us know if you end up taking it as is, or if you change it to anything we say, and if you use it at a tournament or a game and how it does. We'll move on to the main topic for today, which is the Moria Warriors. So, Rob, if you want to go over the first profile.
Yeah, sure. So the first profile is appropriately the Moria Goblin Warrior. And this is a 4-point model that has the Goblin, Moria, Infantry, and Warrior keywords. They have a movement of 5, a fight value of 2, a shoot value of 5+, strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and 2 courage. They come base with an armor and sword and have the option to buy an orc bow, a shield, or a spear. And their special is Cave Dweller. So, I mean, there's not a tremendous amount to say about this profile. I mean, it's a goblin, right? It's cheap. For 5 points, you can get a defense 5 model, which is actually pretty good. You take them for bulk. They're not really particularly impressive. They get a little bit better when they are within a list with certain heroes that make them better, right? So you've got Groblog, for example, who can make them better fight, etc. But by and large, you take these guys just when you need to bulk out your numbers, and they're useful in a Moria list for that. They're useful when you're trying to ally them in somewhere and you just need a big warband of cheap troops. And I think the coolest thing about them is probably that I believe this is the first evil plastic kit released for the game, right? The Moria Goblin Warrior that came in the original starter set. So they are a little bit iconic in that sense. They've been around the longest, but there's nothing super spectacular about them. They're goblins, and you expect them to be goblins, and they act like goblins, right? And in that way, they kind of excel in that role because they're like worse orcs, but they're also cheaper. So.
Yeah, I like your quick point on like defense 5 for 5 points. Like that's a shield model. You can use the shield, but it's also like a horde that takes a 6 to kill on shooting with D2 or with strength 2. Like that's actually pretty rare. Shockingly, it's actually pretty rare in this game. Yeah. So I do like that sense because you come against like a Moria horde with 60 or so 70 guys, and you see all these guys coming here like I'm gonna mow them down like it's summer lawn. But like they don't die in shooting, which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, even a strength 3 model in combat still needs a 5 or a strength 4 one, right? Which is only a third of the time you're killing them. So you're probably winning most of your fights against them at fight 2, but they grind you down over time because, for every kill you get, right, you're going to take at least 1 kill in return if you're outnumbered enough. And they're not quite as good at that as say like Goblin Town, just because they don't all have the ability to spear support each other. So you have to be a little bit more careful with positioning, but they're still cheap. D5 on the cheap. So
yeah, I don't have much to add to this. I mean, they suck, but they're cheap. So they have a lot of uses. Just some advice about when you choose to take them. Either you want to take a lot of these guys or you want to use them as spear supports for more powerful models. Like if you're allying, Durbers and 15 of these guys with spears, gives you a bunch of really cheap spear supports. If you want to support, say, Black Numenorians or Uruk-hai or something like that. And I mean, that's a cheap way to get a lot of numbers in. Other than that, I mean, they're Moria goblins. They're very self-explanatory.
A lot of the conversation around them is almost ancillary to other profiles, right? Like this does X and therefore Moria Goblin Warriors. But on their own as a profile, like you said, they suck, but they good suck. They're the kind of suck you take on purpose, right?
Okay, so we'll move on to the next profile.
Which sucks. Just
I'm gonna get it out here.
We're like some.
I already told this to everyone on the podcast earlier. This is my favorite model aesthetically in the game, and some people might argue that in the old edition they didn't need the strength 4. I think you were still paying a hefty price for that in consideration the fact that they're fight 2. So I don't think they needed to lose the strength 4 because now the profile is almost why would you ever take it except for fun situation. But Evan, if you want to go over the Moria Black Shields.
Yeah, Moria Black Shield, 8 points. So just to do a bit of a comparison, that is double the price of a Moria Goblin Warrior. They are move 5, fight 2, shoot value 5 up, strength 3, defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3. They've got heavy armor, sword, and a shield. They can take a spear for 1 point. And their 2 special rules are Cave Dweller and Hatred Dwarf. These guys aren't good. I'm going to say that right now. If you by chance have ever looked at a Moran and Orc profile in your life, you will realize that they are better in almost every single way. Morannon orcs have 1 higher fight value and 1 higher strength value. And the trade-off for that, oh, and they also have 1 extra move value, which is very important. The difference between move 5 and move 6 is huge. And for all of that, all Moria Black Shields get is Courage 3, which isn't awful, but there are both Moria Goblin Shamans and Orc Shamans, so it really doesn't play a huge role. And then for the special rules, he's got Cave Dweller, which is, I mean, it happens maybe once every 6 games that you use that special rule, and Hatred Dwarf. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like 4 or 5 dwarf armies in the game. So you're really not going to be seeing a lot of dwarves.
It's a themed model, which doesn't make sense too, because they sell them in Finecast, and you'd imagine they'd want to sell, like GW would want to sell them, but they're like, yeah, like let's make this awesome, like Tim said, his favorite aesthetic. Let's take this awesome aesthetic, this cool thing. Look, they're scary, and let's make them irrelevant.
Well, I think what happened here is that they used to be Gundabad Black Shields, right? And so they represented the Gundabad orcs before the Hobbit movies came out, essentially. And then when actual Gundabad orcs on screen came out and they had to make Gundabad orcs to represent that profile, they're like, well, what do we do with these guys? Let's make them Moria. But then there's no point for them to have like Hatred Elf, and then they're too good for Moria. And so they kind of got lost in the fold a little bit. They can't even drop their shield for spear, which means that if you want a spear on that guy, you're paying 9 points now, which is outstandingly high for a model that, you know, occasionally hates dwarves that it'll never beat in combat and is a basement dweller. So there's not a whole lot of positive to say about these guys. They do have a couple of fringe uses, and, you know, the model is exceptional. So if you really love them and you just want to have a themey list, by all means, right? But competitively, they're not great.
They're the Gilead Veterans of Moria.
They're the kind of suck you don't take on purpose. So
well, at least if you took us Gilead Veterans and put them in a different list, they'd probably be good. If you put these guys in a different list, they would be just as bad.
Or worse, even.
Yes. Like, if you put these in Mordor, they would be totally outclassed. If you put them in Isengard, they'd be totally outclassed. And the problem is, one could argue that their defense 6 gives them a niche, but because Moria is yellow with literally everybody, and the army bonus is situational at best, it's super easy to just throw in a cheap hero of valor and then throw in a bunch of defense 6 models that are more points efficient.
Yeah, and we even just talked about like 5 points for defense 5. Like, that's such a budget price that it's like you don't even in a way need defense 6 in this list.
Yeah.
I have the opinion.
But don't get me started on us Gilead Veterans. I could rant about that for hours.
I mean, when I look at the Black Shields, I have this opinion. I know that they probably got rid of the Strength 4 because there were a lot of complaints probably back in the day when people were taking Black Shields in the front with regular Moria Goblins behind, and they probably wanted to focus more on the regular Moria Goblins. My argument is if you had made them a point cheaper, so they're 7 points base, you're more likely to see these. And it's not that they're great, but it's like, okay, there's 7 points, 8 points for back rank as well. But now if I want to have a front rank, it's 7 points. I could have that or a Prowler, or it's just a 2-point upgrade on my regular Moria Goblin to give me, if you want to get rid of the Strength 4. But if you just brought back the Strength 4, I don't think many people would be complaining about this model anymore, because then you could have front rank, back ranks at Strength 4. And it's one key stat. If you just increased it, nobody would have an issue with this model anymore. And people would stop saying, oh, well, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's like, okay, well, now you have a Morannon in your list, but it's still not as good as a Morannon. So, but it's the same points. So it's a premium for this list, but it makes them good. So I would like to see them either drop a point or give them their strength back. But that's just myself. We'll move on to the next profile, which is the Moria Goblin Drum. So the drums are pretty interesting. I think most people will try to get a drum in their list, but doesn't mean they always will. So it's 75 points, and it comes with 2 drum models. So you have the drums, which are movement 5, fight 2 with a 5+ shoot value, strength 3, defense 4, Oh, I'm sorry. This is the drummers. My apologies. The drummers, not the drum. Move 5. It's basically a Moria Goblin. And the drum is defense 10 with 3 wounds if you're trying to kill it. They come with Cave Dweller. Destroying the drum. It's a passive ability. The drum can be shot at and struck normally and has a defense of 10 and 3 wounds. If it is reduced to 0 wounds, it is destroyed and cannot be played anymore. The drum has no control zone. An enemy model that spends a full turn in base contact with the drum without doing anything else, such as shooting, using a magical power, or fighting in combat, may immediately destroy the drum as described above. So if you were able to just get in combat with the, or not get in combat, if you were just to stand next to the drum and do nothing, the drum's destroyed. If you want to actually damage it, it's defense 10 with 3 wounds. Take up the drum. If either of the drummers are slain, they may pass on their war gear to any other unengaged Moria goblins within 1 inch. So basically allows you to replace the drummers in case they got shot out to help out so that you don't just have 2 models and if one of them dies, you're screwed. You can just keep another goblin within range and it'll replace it. And then finally, Drums in the Deep, which is an active ability, so it can be shut down by magic. For the drum to be played, at least 1 Moria Goblin drummer must have started the turn in base contact with the drum and also not be engaged in a fight. When the drum is being played, it has the following effects. All fights within 18 inches of 1 or more of the drums that also include at least 1 friendly Moria Goblin model may re-roll a single d6 for the dual roll. Note that it is not cumulative with other banner effects. And also, all friendly Moria Goblins on the battlefield add +1 to their courage value, and the enemies get a -1 to their courage value. And that is also not cumulative with other rules. The drum is a heavy object and should be treated like that. And the drum cannot be played a turn in which it is moved. So essentially what the drum does is it gives you +1 to your courage, -1 to theirs. It gives you a banner of 18 inches, but you have to have a Moria Goblin in that fight. It can't be just anything. So yeah, it's a pretty good little rule. It gives you a little bit boost to courage in case you didn't have a shaman or something like that, and it also lowers theirs, which is good. But the main reason you take it is for the banner, because the goblins don't have a banner, and it is an 18-inch banner, so it should, if you move it properly, it should cover the whole fights of your goblins. So it's almost like Emerhill's banner, but you have to keep it within range of the drum itself. But obviously it's a heavy object, so it's harder to move. But you just accept that. Any other thoughts on that? I'll go to Rainier first.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people say it's essential for the list, but I don't know. I never take it. I know many people do, which I like, but I don't know. Like, it just seems like it boosts your, I guess, essentially just boosts your Moria horde, makes things scarier. Yeah, that's what I do. I think it stacks in a sense with the -1 courage penalty, like that stacks with things like the Watcher, which we went over last week. But
I'm fairly sure it is non-cumulative, so it does not.
Non-cumulative. Oh yeah,
So, yeah. Actually, to point this
Non-cumulative.
out, there are actually quite a few anti-synergies with the drum, especially the courage part about it, because the -1 courage is almost completely invalidated by having any of the big monsters of Moria, because a lot of them have Harbinger of Evil. And the +1 courage is almost completely negated by either 1, the Balrog, or 2, a Moria Goblin Shaman.
I think
so.
Essentially,
really, you're paying for the banner.
It's just like a battlefield wide banner. I know, like we say, like it's you can still move it too. So like that's a good thing about it. 18 inches doing a full circle, like that's basically the whole battlefield. So I don't know, like it's 75 points for a banner. It doesn't even count towards VP points. So in my opinion, I never take it just because I find myself wanting something that hits harder, or like Evan said, like you have things that are terrifying and already have Harbinger. So why would you bring it to make things scarier? So yeah, I don't know. It just seems like, yeah, you bring it maybe if you just bring a horde of goblins and some cave trolls. like a cool theme list, I guess it would be, and quite effective in that themey sense.
Yeah, I think theme is really the main thing that drives you to take this, that and the specific Balrog Legendary Legion, where it does count as a banner. If you're not themey, then spend the extra 40 points, take Suladan on a horse. And he's got a 6-inch banner, which is obviously not 18 inches, but it is usually far enough for whatever you need. He's got 3 might. He's on a horse. He gives you an additional hitter, and he can lead a bunch of fight 4 spear supports, which can be helpful for your mainly low fight Moria army. And he just offers a whole lot more than the drum in most ways. But obviously, if you would prefer to take a pure Moria list, then this is your only way to get a banner in there. So consider it.
I think one of the problems I have with this model in general is that it only affects Moria goblins. If it actually affected some of the various like monsters that you can take in the army, I think it would be a lot better to get rerolls for some of those, big beasties, but it doesn't. And so that kind of limits its utility. And for the points, you could essentially, if you just wanted to do a 1-for-1 swap, you could take a troll. And I think that a troll is probably going to kill more than a couple rerolls on common goblins that are really there just to be speed bumps anyway. So it's not a huge value added from a competitive standpoint. That said, I did take one in the list I wrote for today, and so we can cover why I did later. But I mean, on net as a competitive piece, I agree that it's probably a pass. And this one is probably even more of a pass because of the next profile, which is another version of it, right? Which I think might be a little bit better. So,
all right, Rainier, if you want to go over the Black Shield Drummer.
So the Moria Black Shield Drummers is basically an alternative version of this, a more mobile version. Comes with 2 drummers and 1 drum. Basic profile for the drummers are fight 2, strength 3, D5, 1, 1, 3. So 1 plus more courage. They have heavy armor and clubs, and one of them carries the drum. So it's kind of, if you see the picture of it, it's kind of cool. It looks like you have this guy ready to like play like at a Blue Man concert on the back of his friend. So
I want to paint them blue so bad now.
Oh gosh, you should. Oh my god.
Oh man.
And then you could just take off what's his face, Dalmir's head, because it's bald and it's just like normal, and just put his head on all of them and just paint them blue. So anyways, back to our weird conversions. Run and drum. So back to the more mobile force. The drum is considered to be plain as long as the drummer and the drum bearer are in base contact with each other. So you run them together. Doom, instead of drums in the deep. Doom, all fights within 12 of 1 or more drums that include at least 1 friendly Moria Goblin model may reroll a single D6 for their dual roll. So it's not cumulative with any other effects with banners. All friendly Goblin models on the battlefield add 1+ to their courage, and all enemy models suffer -1 penalty to their courage. So basically the same thing, but 12 inches instead of 18. It's mobile, so I don't know which one's better. Take up the drum is another special rule. If either the drummer or the drum bearer is slain, they may pass on their war gear to any other unengaged Moria Black Shield within 1 inch, and you immediately replace it. So the sucky thing is you're going to have to take more of those crap Black Shields if you do want to keep this going. So I don't know. I guess like a quick debate on which one is better. So Rob, you mentioned this one. I would actually say the other one's better because it's harder to kill. And I love playing crossbows, and I don't mind the idea of just moving it wherever I want to play it. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think that one, the Black Shield, has it where it's like, oh shoot. But
it's unfortunate you have to take more Black Shields to kind of make it work, but I do think the fact that it's movable makes it more worth it, because if you were stuck in one place, and I know we've talked about this on other podcasts or on previous podcasts where we kind of go back and forth between this and they're both useful. I think I'd probably end up preferring the Black Shield, take 2 extra Black Shields with it. And because you can move it around, you can keep it close to your army, so you can keep it protected. But also, if you needed to go somewhere for whatever the reason, you can. and you can still keep the effects within 12 inches. So I think I'd like the ability to move it and just take an extra couple of black.
It seems like it does fit because we talked about the original one is more traditional sense, thematic sense. This one seems like it fits with all those monsters that we talked about last time because they are mobile and like Watcher's going to pop out of nowhere. Drakes are going to be going all over the place like dragon.
And even though it's not that much of an improvement, the extra defense will help against regular shooting to not help them die as easily. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of broadly where I'm at, Tim, as well. I mean, comparing the two, they're not massively better than each other, but I think that in-game utility, I like the mobility of it a little more, if I'm taking it at all. It used to be, if I remember correctly, that they were not the same points, right? So you would always take one or the other, but now
they were
they're
the same points.
Yeah, but they were 100.
The Moria Black Shield drum was just better in every single way, so everybody took that.
Yeah.
Now there is an actual argument for which one you take. And I think it really depends on two things. One, the model count of the armies that you expect to be playing against. And two, how spread out you think you're going to play. Because if you are playing against larger armies and you're playing more spread out, I think the original Moria Goblin Drum is better because it has that 18-inch range and can affect more combats. If you're going to play more clumped up together, 12 inches is a perfectly fine range. And I mean, therefore, this is probably just the better option in that case. So it depends, honestly, in my opinion.
Well, the mobility also comes into play with like Maelstrom too, right? When you have no choice, but you have to move. So
I think there's two tactics to be considered with this as well. One is if you keep the drum back further, it forces your opponent to get behind your line and not necessarily waste time, but spend time going to your drum. And so that's something to consider is that if you keep it far, you have the 18-inch range, but it also forces them to go get that if they want to disable that. But another reason why I consider the Black Shield is majority of the time you are going to your opponent. So I think having the drum be able to move with you while you go to your opponent is also more helpful. But I think the ability to force your opponent to kind of go back to get the drum as well is also a little thing. But I guess that kind of covers the drums. We'll move into the next profile. So Rob, if you want to go over the Prowler.
Yeah, sure. So the Moria Goblin Prowler. It's a 7-point model, Goblin Moria Infantry Warrior. It has a 5-inch move, a fight of 3, and a shoot of 4+. Strength 3, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and 2 courage. It comes with armor, a 2-handed axe, and throwing daggers, and has the Cave Dweller special rule that they all get, and Backstabbers. I actually really like these guys. They're having played against them a lot, they're always a nasty little surprise when they kind of pop in. Now, I don't think that you go overboard on them because they are still defense 4 goblins, but one, they're kind of like a little Swiss Army knife of the Moria list where they can kind of bring every little trick that you can have on one model into the fight. And the fact that they're fight 3 and being in Moria, they can get to fight 4. That's really your only source of fight 4 in the
5.
list. Or fight 5. Yeah. Which is actually pretty outstanding. Throwing weapons or throwing daggers are always useful, whether it's, in an evil army where you can throw into your own combats. And if you have the option to kill a horse or a goblin, you always don't care if you kill the goblin. But at defense 5, you usually don't worry about that anyway. Backstabbers is also really great because since they're always two-handing, which is a weakness, but since they're always two-handing, when you piercing strike and get into the right combat where their fight shoots up and they're getting like +2 to wound and they're probably strength 4 or higher, they can pack a really nasty little punch. And they're on a small base, so if you're good at positioning, they're really good at getting into places that you want them. So I actually rate these guys fairly highly. I think that as a little like cruise missile goblin, they work really well. Again, I don't think you like super spam them, but they're definitely very handy to have, especially in the late game as you start outnumbering and getting more of those trap fights where they just really come into their own. So I would always sprinkle some into a list that is heavy on goblins. Obviously, if you're doing kind of like a monster mash or something, they become a little bit less relevant. But for an army that's usually not killing a lot of stuff, these guys are pretty handy to have.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like everything you hit, I think these are one of the only, if the only models that I would actually prioritize to take who have two-handed and no burly, because just the idea of, like we talked over the black shields, like they don't do anything with the army. These guys do something for the army. And I mentioned fight 5 because if you tack them on with the +1 to fight with the pure Moria Goblin or the whatever ally matrix, and then you add Groblog.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Groblog, the mithril crown, 3 inches. These guys are fight 5 with backstabbers and throwing weapons. Like that's insane. Like these guys give me Corsair vibes. Like,
right.
Like and you need that. And then like even if they die, like it's 7 points, but if they get through, like they're gonna kill stuff. The throwing weapons will wound things like on an off chance. So like if you have these guys sprinkled into your little Moria horde, like it's just a little tiny, like 1-2 extra points per Moria like body, like to get all that. Like sign me up. Like it's pretty good.
Yeah, 100%.
So here, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just gonna say with the Prowlers, I like anything with throwing weapons, and I think something in this list where you can spam out throwing weapons. Corsair Rainier.
You traumatized him.
There's a certain person here who loves spamming throwing weapons with but it'd be nice.
Well, it's because I think throwing weapons are like useless unless you bring like 80.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but everyone who has them brings 80. So
yeah. But I like the throwing weapons. I like the increase to fight value. And with the army bonus, if you keep the army bonus, I mean the ability to get +2. I think it's the only model in the game, if I'm correct, that can go +2 to wound. Is there
yes. So they are I'm fairly sure the only model in the entire game that can auto wound something.
That's
Bolg can get close if he's fighting against an elf with defense 3 because he wounds on 2-ups rerolling 1s. But what these guys can do is they can piercing strike up to strength 4, strike against something that's defense 2, which is either 1 Sigurd or Tilde, or 2 something that has also piercing struck and lost its defense. And then they wound on 3s and get +2 to wound from backstabbers in the 2-handed X. So they wound on 1+s. Would this ever be useful? No. If you trap a defense 2 or 3 model, it's dead anyways. It doesn't matter. But you could do this. So yeah.
Now what about Dunlending in the Legendary Legion?
Yeah, I think that's actually possible. If you're playing against
hatred of
Rohan. And they piercing strike, and we're
like,
low
what's
enough.
The most gimmicky?
I guess if you take a Rohan warrior with an axe and no shield.
Yeah,
good for you.
If you call the Trident special
I build my
rule,
list to fight that.
Strike against a Rohan warrior that has piercing struck down to defense 3. Well, actually, it has to be defense 3 is fine because Dunlendings can piercing strike. So yeah, you can auto wound a Rohan warrior with
like I'm gonna surround that one Rohan warrior and just use that special rule just to kill him like 8 auto wounds. But
yes,
now is the time, boys.
Exactly.
Again, this has no competitive use because wounding something on 3s or 2s, I mean, you're gonna wound them anyways. It doesn't matter.
But
that's like the theme of this podcast.
7, yeah, I think something that's defense 7, defense 6, though, the ability to wound them on 3s or 4s. I mean, that can't be understated enough for a model to get 2 strikes with 4s to wound. I mean, that against any hero, that's terrifying, to be honest.
Or a dwarf battle line, because you go up against dwarves and you're like, okay, my monsters are going to kill the dwarves. My bodies are just going to be there. But these guys, it's like, okay, like random little like freckles in my body, and like my army horde is going to actually like pierce through it. Like grab some freckles, guys. Like, dude.
I mean, I've never personally done this, but I hear some people like to play with Fountain Court Guard, and if they did, they would be very afraid when these goblins get into combats with them. So, and the fact that they auto kill.
I don't think anyone takes it, but like, what are they called? Because they're so rare. Fountain Court Hordes. Shoot, it sounds weird me just saying those words.
I don't.
Together.
It's a really
but if they did
bizarre
take
concept.
It, like this would.
I mean, honestly, like anyone who takes Fountain Court Guards, like I mean, I just hate you because you just play the cheesiest models and it's just defense 7 and fight 5 with Boromir. Man, who would do such a horrible thing?
It's terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rob, you said you might know someone. Do you know who is that person by chance?
This is going to be
can't
awkward
remember passing acquaintance
someone,
really.
I played someone with that specific list in Virginia. All I remember was.
Well, it's a good thing that my byline says Washington, D.C., which is nowhere near Virginia, as we all know.
There we go.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true. You're all the way on the west coast.
But you know what? That jerk is out there somewhere, and he fears the Prowler. So.
Is it that guy from Devon's earlier? What was the name of that guy?
Okay, fine. It's me. You caught
me. All right.
Somehow a Goblin Prowler automatically murdering a defenseless little girl is the most Moria, though. So, great.
Evan, if you want to move into the Bat Swarm.
Evan and I are going to switch because I do not want to tackle that Warg Marauder. So I'm going to kind of throw him under the bus. And if anyone, I messaged him. I was like, Evan, can you please save me the embarrassment?
All right, Rainier, if you want to go over the Bat Swarm then.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll do it. So the Bat Swarm is 35 points. He's a Bat Infantry Warrior model. Movement of 3, but we'll get to that. Fight 1, Strength 3, Defense 3, 2 attacks, 4 wounds, Courage 2. His war gear is claws and teeth, so he scratches and he bites. The special rule, though, is fly, so 12 inches, which you'll usually see him doing flying all over the place. Now, the special rule that he gets, which is very relevant to this army, is when he's in base contact. Oh, let me see. The fight value of any enemy model engaged in combat with a bat swarm is halved, rounding down. So this guy is like a flying ring. Like it's crazy. And like, of course, right off the bat, you're going to think, oh, interesting. Tag this guy with the Watcher, tag this guy with the monsters, blah, blah, blah. But you can even tag this guy with Durberts and Groblog, who can have Heroic Strike. And it is a menace. I see a lot of people allying in so many things. It also kind of combines with, you can ally in the Spider Queen, throw them in Durberts. From this list, don't be enraging. Spider Queen, enrage the bat, and the bat will just claw something to death.
Yep.
So he's basically, in my opinion, an essential for this list. I bring at least 1, possibly 2. We're not even I didn't even mention also objective game. He can go fly, 4 wounds, so he's not going to be shot out that fast. And he is just, I think he's essential for the list.
Yep.
Yeah, he's great.
This is the best model in the entire Moria list, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
It just does so much for 35 points. I'm still not entirely sure why they round down the fight value. It goes against every other fight value having rule, but they do, and it's something you can take advantage of. They synergize with all the monsters. They synergize with all the other heroes. You can either ally them from the Moria list or from the Dark Denizens of Mirkwood list into basically any list and use them to support the powerful heroes from the other lists. They're so versatile, so fast with the fly. You can use them as objective grabbers. They do basically everything. And it's ridiculous just how useful they are. But there are a couple things you need to keep in mind. Number 1, their defense 3. Despite the fact that they have 4 wounds, I have seen these guys get shot out by just a bunch of elf bowmen, just one turn, just pop because they wound them on 4s. So be careful with them.
Yeah.
Don't just send them blindly into archers.
Too, from mega heroes that are I'm just going to charge you on a horse and just kill you. like screw it. So like I wouldn't isolate this sucker. Like he is very much part of a tag team assassination squad.
Yes. I mean, they're fight 1. They can't fight on their own. Even with the having fight value, they're tying with fight 2 models. So really this model works best when combining with another model.
It's like the ultimate support piece. And the fact that it flies too, so that you can fly it over and get those traps wherever you want them on the top of the effect is so nasty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like the old Fell Beast kind of like, boom, you're transfixed or compelled. Like this is just a flying transfix compel machine, and you can't really resist it. So
I think the biggest drawback is after this last year, nobody wants to see another bat ever again. So they might disappear from the competitive scene. But
yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I mean, you'll see these guys allied all the time, especially
All
whether
the
that
time.
be under with the Spider Queen and her warband, or just even adding a Goblin Captain, or let's say Durbers, because you have to have you'll find a bat swarm in a lot of lists, and you'll see people trying to fit them in if they can. It is an incredibly annoying model to go against. If you can take them, try to take 2. I'd say if you can take at least 2, because they are annoying. We'll move on to.
I want to just cover one more thing about them, and that they are Courage 2. So if you don't have Drew's Hag, you hate terror models. So, Glorfindel or a Wraith or something like that, you're not reliably going to be able to charge them. And that sometimes can really destroy your plans. And sure, they're Courage 4 with Drew's Hag, and you can cast Fury and make them auto-pass Courage tests. But Drew's Hag is very expensive. He's 90 points, and you're not always going to be able to fit him in, especially in alliances. So keep that in mind when you're playing them.
Okay. We'll move on to what most people consider the most broken model in the game in the old edition. It has been nerfed a little bit, but it's still a very strong model in today. But Evan, if you want to go over the Warg Marauder.
Yes. So the Warg Marauder is just a ridiculous model in concept and in execution. It is 3 goblins atop 1 warg. It is 30 points. So the profile for the Moria Goblin is exactly the same. Move 5, fight 2, strength 3, shoot value 5 up. That is actually important in this. Defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 2. A warg is just a warg profile. Move 10, fight 3, strength 4, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 2. So a Warg Marauder is an interesting cavalry model in that it has 3 Moria Goblins riding upon a single Warg, 1 with a shield and 2 with a bow. This model is treated the same as any other cavalry model with the following exceptions. Whilst the Goblin with a shield is still alive and mounted upon the Warg, all parts of the cavalry model gain the bonus of +1 to their defense. So Warg goes up to defense 5. Moria Goblins with bows go up to defense 5 as well, and the Moria Goblin with shield goes up to defense 6. A Warg Marauder only counts as 1 model towards an army's bow limit, despite the fact that it has 2 bowmen. And then the war gear is armor, sword, and either shield or orc bow for the Moria Goblins, and claws and teeth for the warg. So it has 2 special rules. The first one is on the hunt. From the back of their warg, the Goblins of Moria are able to fire their bows in the hope of providing their canine transport with some much desired flesh. A Warg Marauder can always fire an orc bow shot for each goblin with an orc bow, that would be 2 of them, that is alive upon the back of the warg, even if it has moved its full movement or is engaged in a fight. So you are going to be hitting on 6s, but you will be able to fire 2 shots. The second special rule is lethal union. Whilst the goblins remain mounted upon the warg, the entire model gains the terror special rule and adds a bonus of +1 to its courage value, so up to courage 3. Additionally, in combat, a Warg Marauder may make an additional attack for each goblin after the first that is still mounted upon the warg, so long as they did not shoot during the shoot phase. So that is a whole lot of stuff for this guy. But basically what it means is you have a fight 3 cavalry model with 3 attacks and 4 on the charge, and just courage 3, defense 5, strength 4, and it causes terror and stuff like that. So it does a whole lot of stuff, and there are a couple of problems with this model. Number 1 is a stiff breeze will just completely destroy it. It's the definition of a glass cannon, and unfortunately, in this case, it is more glass than cannon. Sorcerer's Blast, Call Winds, Nature's Wrath, anything like that will just completely negate all the bonuses and just drop your 3 goblins on the ground, and your warg might run away. Hurls absolutely murder these guys. So you really, really need to be careful with them. Other stuff, they obviously hit extremely hard. Strength 4 with 4 attacks is nothing to look away from, but they are fight 3. So, they charge into 1 random elf or dwarf. The dwarf shields and rolls a 6. Oh well, you lost the entire combat. But there are quite a few good things about this model, one of which is the weird interactions it can have in scenarios like Reconnoiter, where you can basically take the entire model, run up to the board edge, dismount, and then have all of your goblins and your warg run off the board, giving you 4 points. So I personally would recommend, they are not an essential part of the list, but I would recommend maybe taking 1. Don't take a lot of these guys because they can die very quickly.
Yeah, I like they're kind of like, if you want to keep the bulk, like Moria is a horde army. So if you want to continue with that, have something that hits pretty hard or has the potential of hitting pretty hard, as Evan said, the glass cannon effect, and still keep a lot of numbers, do it. I even like the idea of adding him and combining him with a bat swarm, or doing these different weird combos like dismounting and rage the warg, just a whole bunch of weird things. But the problem with them that I find is there's so many options in Moria. And by the time that I get to him, I'm like, I'm already full. Like I've had enough. like I'd rather just put something else in the list because it's too much. But I do think they have like a good place in the list. I've seen players play them even in the new edition and have quite a lot of success with them. And I mean, 30 points for all that, that's still not that bad. Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting.
Well, yeah, I think the only thing that drives me crazy about them is just there are so many rules to remember playing with and against them that it's just like, it feels like you're taking a math test trying to figure out what they do every turn, which just kind of drives me nuts. And so that's why I would avoid them personally. But I think they do have uses, especially they're another, target to enrage. And the Reconnoiter trick I had never heard of. That's actually pretty clever, assuming you can, keep the warg around. But yeah, I mean, I think you sprinkle them for sure, but you don't spam them like you used to.
They remind me of like the Beast of Gorgoroth in a way, like something that hits, you can shoot like multiple bows that like never actually hit anything, but you can shoot a ton, even shoot while you're in combat. Yeah. But they're like, the Beast of Gorgoroth, simple. Warg Marauder, let's make this so complicated.
Right.
Like it's like, oi, like it's so complicated that people are like, please don't even FAQ it. Like it's all we can handle.
Yeah.
And then you're like, so what stats does it have again? Like which goblin is where? Like does the warg have an Easterling helmet? Like, it's all over the place. So.
Yeah, exactly. There's a signal tower on it. Huh?
Yeah. The problem is last edition, they tried to make them simple and they ended up creating an absolutely overpowered profile that
Yeah.
basically it was a cavalry model that could not lose its mount, which is just as broken in theory as it was in practice. I
Yeah.
don't know if like the goblins were glued to the warg or something, but yeah, it could be knocked prone and stand back up and still go on.
It's that poor guy that like ties himself to the bowl as it's like riding, and you're like, dude, just let go. He's like flailing like a dead body, but it's because he literally like strapped himself to the bowl. And once the bull is finally just tired, you just see the dead cowboy.
Well,
I think the only difference is that Cowboy is probably still a better shot than the goblins on the warg, but
Probably.
and the other issue as well was the fact that you could do damage to this warg. So you have a mount that can't lose its mount. It has so many wounds, but it doesn't affect the attacks. And you do charge it into a hero, and you genuinely don't care if you lose. Like you charge this into like a decent hero, and you go, I don't care if I lose this guy. He's not dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have Mick on here because I think he used to play armies with like 12 of these guys or something.
I was
ridiculous
just going to talk
like
about
that.
armies like that. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember hearing a list one time, person, and I think this was in the old edition where I don't think their bow. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think their bows counted towards the limit back then as well.
I think
people
they
bring
may
in
have counted
Saruman
as
with
one
these
model
guys.
towards the bow limit.
One model. Okay, so I think I heard someone take a list. It was at like I think it was 800 points, and they ended up taking like 36 regular goblins, and then they took 12 marauders, and then you have 20 moving shots that can go up at all times. You had 20 models that basically can't die. You charge into one section of a person's army, destroy it, move on to the next, and then it's like you just had zero chance of doing anything because you can't fight off 12 orc marauders attacking at the same time. Yeah, no, they've definitely been nerfed and for the better. What I'll ask real quickly before we move on to the next profile, when would you guys use this model? Because I know we've talked that Rainier has said as well that there's so many good things that it just gets left out. Is there a moment where you would be like, actually, I want a Warg Marauder in my list for this specific?
When it's high points, like why not? Like we talked about the Prowler's use, and many people use a Prowler as a flanker. Like I really still like the Marauder as a flanker. Something to hit the edges. What is it? Let me go over this real quick. Like you knock something down, like that sucker's gonna die usually because you're going in with strength 4 from the warg. So in a way it works as that like kind of Prowler, just you can bring like 4 Prowlers for cheaper than it. So that's kind of where I'm like 4 Prowlers for cheaper plus 4 throwing weapons plus backstabbers, like potential fight 5, what we all talked about. Like that's where I drop them once I start like actually like competitively, because we're talking competitively in a fun tournament. I'll bring 1 or 2 of these guys because why not? But if you're taking like an optimized list, I just find myself dropping them for the Prowlers because it's spread out. One of these, like Evan said, knocks down, like boom, Sorcerer's Blast, there he goes. Like there goes 4 worth of a Prowler. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. They also take forever, like in a competitive setting when there's a time limit where it's like, I have to randomize horse or rider, then I have to randomize goblins, then I have to do this. And so it just almost gets distracting sometimes.
Okay. We'll move on to the penultimate profile. I love this model so much. This is the Dweller in the Dark. It's basically, the way to describe it, if you haven't seen it before, it looks like a mini Balrog. But it is a warrior model. It is 75 points, so it's relatively cheap, but for a monster. He is fight 7, which I think is a huge stat for him, being fight 7. He's strength 5, so not as high as usual with monsters, but still not bad by any means. Defense 5 is where he gets a little shaky. He does have 3 attacks, he does have 3 wounds, and he is Courage 7. And for evil, something being Courage 7 is almost never happening. He is resistant to magic as well, so you don't have to worry as much about magic with him. And he has terror. He also has an active power called Murderous Power. Whenever he slays an enemy in combat, he regains a single wound lost earlier in the battle. Rend is the only brutal power tech that allows a dweller to regain wounds. So and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the only model that has the ability to regain wounds that is specifically a warrior model. So it's a fight 7 mini Balrog at strength 5 with 3 attacks and 3 wounds. And in case you took a wound, if you kill 2 more models, well, you're back up to full health again. Now, it does have the ability to get killed, obviously, in one swoop because it is defense 5 with 3 wounds. But if you keep it in good places, it can do a ton of damage to troops. The ability to hurl, the ability to just kill anything. I mean, you don't care about Guard of the Galadrim Court. You don't care about anything fight 6. It's all about fight 7 with this thing. I actually really like the Dweller, but the problem that a lot of people have, obviously, is the defense.
Yeah, he looks like a mini Balrog, but he reminds me more of a mini Gullivar.
Okay.
In the sense that you can shoot him out really quick, and you can flash kill him with like an Aragorn or something, like just rogue strike, take him out and whatnot. But I do like what you said. Like, you put him in the right place, he does a lot of damage. Even like we talked about back to the bat, like him in the bat, like, wow, like that negates the hero coming in and flash killing him and stuff.
I do want to point out as well, he is a spirit, so he can be banished. So for anyone with Galadriel, Lady of Light, that's
everyone
an
with
annoying thing.
Galadriel.
Just everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
A good army.
So basically, you can't take him because everybody takes Galadriel, and he'll die from a channeled version. But yeah, so he is a spirit, unfortunately, which means that Galadriel can banish him. He has claws and teeth for war gear as well, so he can't be shattered in case anybody was trying to do that to him. Yeah, I think it's a good profile. I think there are obvious weaknesses is why you don't see him as often. But
yeah,
I think if you were to use him correctly, he could be devastating. But I think the weaknesses overweigh the strengths to where in a competitive setting you would not take him.
Yeah, and it's all about compare and contrast. So it's like he is good, like for what he has. But then for me, I'm like, Durberts and some cheap models that can be as good or better than this if you enrage them. So Durberts and some bat swarms. Of course, that's more expensive than him. But then you have like bat swarms that can negate, help with the strike, help with the monsters, or you can enrage them if that makes sense. Plus, they fly 12 inches. Spiders can go 12 inches being enraged. Where this guy is kind of like he seems at least like a soft Balrog, because the 8 inches is great, but he's usually going to be with your infantry horde and they go 5 inches and you don't want to throw him in front of everything because he'll be shot out. So of course there's a place for him, I think, but just when you're comparing him to other things, I find myself not really competitively taking him.
Yeah, I think a long line of Moria models with giant wings that don't fly, right? That's a problem, is that limits the mobility.
It's a penguin army.
A friend of mine actually at 800 points for the fun runs the Balrog with 5 of these. And I don't think it's amazing, but it looks amazing. And when that hits your line, you feel it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his base too, his base is so cool.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what they were doing when they're making all these fine cast models. They're like, let's make all their bases.
Gotta love the little skull. Gotta love the little skeleton
and
body.
They're like, then let's just make these prices way unbearable. And continue to make fine cast. That sucks. But anyways.
And let's make those ankle joints as thin as possible.
Yeah, you do the sword. Let's make it a twig and break every time.
This is almost like the inverse of your classic monster model, because it doesn't have the move 6, which everybody hates. It's got fight 7, which is the same as something like a Mordor troll, but is better than a cave troll, notably. It's got courage 7, which usually monsters struggle with courage stuff, so being courage 7 is great. And it's got resistant to magic. Monsters struggle with magic. And it can even regain wounds. The problem is, one, it's strength 5, which isn't good. It means that if it goes up against maybe a strength 5 hero, it's not going to be able to do any brutal power attacks, really. And it's not going to be able to hurl as far. And also it's defense 5, so it's super squishy. Usually monsters are high strength and high defense, and this guy isn't. So it's a trade-off to take this guy.
Yeah, for some odd reason, he reminds me of discussions around a Hasharan in the sense that he kills troops really well, but he has all these special rules that could potentially go up against heroes. But if you lose a strike off to a hero, you're definitely dead. So you're not going to throw him against heroes. So he's kind of caught in that middle ground. And we even compare him to a cave troll. Like his fight's better, he's faster. There's all these things, but just that strength.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the defense too. Like you probably would see more cave trolls because of that.
Okay. If we want to move into the last profile, Rob, if you want to go over the cave troll.
Yeah, speaking of, right? So the last profile, and one that is, in my opinion, about as iconic as the goblin itself for this list, is the cave troll. It is a troll. It's a monster, 75 points, has a movement 6, fight 6, shoot 5+, which for this model is actually relevant. Strength 6, defense 6, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 3 courage. It comes with a spear base, which is actually kind of interesting, and has the option to either take a troll chain, which is a throwing weapon with a 3-inch range and a strength of 5, or a hand and a half hammer. And its special rules are terror, throw stones, and burly. So it is, I mean, it's a troll. It's weaker than its Mordor cousins. It's got less fight, I believe less strength, but it is cheaper, and it does come with that burly 2-hander, which is very useful because it kind of mitigates any lower strength that it would have. A lot of the things that I would say about this, I think, Evan, you covered with the Dweller, right? It's got all of the kind of weaknesses that monsters generally have. If there is a strength for this troll compared to some others, it is that Moria has so many cheap troops that you can get a couple of these and still have the bodies, which is actually really nice. And they are pretty good at hitting stuff and making it stay down permanently. So I think that if I'm playing more fluffy, I would take these guys because I think they're super cool for the list. I think competitively, it's a little more dicey. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that when you take a cave troll, you're probably taking 2 or none, right? Because 2's a threat, 1's a liability kind of thing. But by that point, at that point, you could get some of the bigger monsters in Moria that are probably more useful overall. So I think it's a super iconic profile. I love the model. It's on a smaller base than most trolls, so it can fit places that some of the bigger base trolls can't. But I'd still kind of maybe give it a C+ competitively. So like you do see it, but it's not an auto take by any means in the list. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think you got it. Like I was thinking the whole time, and you got it at the last part. The base size is what makes it viable, because you are going to bring him with a whole bunch of goblin models, and like it's that horde aspect. And if you had a big base size, it's kind of hard to navigate it or make it actually worth it. So I don't know. I'm a big fan also of just the generic movie, like drum, 1 or 2 of them, and a whole bunch of goblins, possibly. Like it's just. And bat, because why not? Because that'll make it better. But like yeah, I like him a lot in that sense. And I know we even had debates, him or the drum, in a previous episodes. I would take him over the drum just because he does have that. And it's like, boom. Like if you have a whole bunch of things in your list, why not 75 points? Like that's, and then you throw him in the list and he destroys troops. Can take out a hero. Heroes aren't going to kill him right off the bat. Shooting's not going to kill him right off the bat. It's not also something that an opponent at a 800 point tournament would decide, hey, I'm going to take all my mega heroes, 300 points worth, and put them all to take this cave troll at 75 points. Like he just blends in like in a way with all the monsters. Yeah, but I like him. Of course, take the hand and half hammer, because that burly will make him kill everything. People talk about half troll battle lines with Mahood. I want to take these guys with these guys supporting with a spear. Just a full battle line of trolls with trolls supporting, because why not?
I do like the spear, because that fight 6 support is actually, you might not expect it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can bigger bases support smaller bases, right?
Yeah,
it's equal or lower, right? So
Yeah, so it's
Mhm.
like you have this random goblin. You're like, yeah, he's fight 6. Like, but the troll chain is something that a lot of people kind of discuss whether to bring or not. I like the idea because it's just like, give him a throwing weapon. Like, why not? But what do you guys think of that?
I'd say no,
Yeah, I'd
honestly.
say no.
The
You know what,
problem
guys?
is
Get out of here.
oh no. Well,
I'm like, I think I take it. What do you guys think? And you're like, it sucks. Get out of
it's
it.
shoot value 5 up, and sure, it's strength 5, but its range is 3 inches, and it costs 5 points. Like normally,
that's
you're
5
paying
shields
2
for
points for a
goblins.
throwing
Now
weapon,
that you guys
and
say
you're
it, I'm
hitting
like,
on
sure, take
4s.
it.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you're right. I don't know, just like that iconic when he's like whips it at Legolas in the movie. Like,
You
that's
know
just
what,
so cool.
though?
He did miss though, so that makes sense.
That troll chain is one of those options where you've got 5 points hanging. You're already at your warband limits. Throw it in there, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
going to hurt you.
It's the
You don't
bow on
prioritize
Soladan
it,
debate.
but why not,
Mhm.
right?
If
Yeah,
you're
it's the bow on Soladan debate. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
Like, why not just give him a bow? Like, what the heck?
And then I
Yeah.
kind of love that it's like a troll Rambo with like a spear and a hammer, and then like this chain it throws around, right? Because it doesn't lose any of those
Yeah.
options. So.
You got to put a bandana on him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's one goblin, so obviously if you're taking a super competitively optimized list, you're not going to take this. But if you take it, whatever, doesn't really matter. You might kill one guy every 5 or 6 games, and then you'll be happy. But yeah, the spear is an interesting gimmick, but pay the 5 points, take the hand and a half hammer, and you're hitting harder than a normal Mordor troll. There you go. It's a really interesting and strong option. And yeah.
I think that concludes the Moria section. So I guess we'll move on to the list reviews. So Evan, if you want to give your list review first.
Okay, I'll do that. So this is actually going to be a list that is very similar conceptually to the list that we reviewed. So in my army, I have warband number 1 is the Shadow Lord on horse with 15 Black Numenorians. Warband number 2 is Suladan on horse with 2 Haradrim warriors with bows and spears and 2 Serpent Raiders. And then in warband number 3 is Durbers with 1 Bat Swarm, 11 Moria goblins with spears, 3 Moria goblins with spears and shields. And then in warband number 4 is the Watcher in the Water. So there are some very similar things between this list and the one we reviewed. By the way, this is 800 points. But there are some differences. Number 1, it's got 38 models, so it's a little smaller, but I don't really mind that. I'm used to playing small lists. And it has the Shadow Lord on horse, who can use his magical powers to support the Watcher. One of the most useful ones is actually Transfix, because the Watcher hates playing against models with heroic defense, because then he can't just automatically kill them in one turn. He has to continually strike against them. And with this, you can just transfix them and kill them normally with the Watcher. The Pall of Darkness from the Shadow Lord helps protect your army, allows it to last longer. Black Numenorians, combined with both the Harbinger from the Shadow Lord and the Watcher, are really great. They'll help the army just be more survivable and allow the Watcher to do more of what the Watcher does best. And Suladan is just a good hero. He hits hard. He provides that banner effect, which supports the Watcher and supports the rest of the Black Numenorians. It's got some mobility with the Serpent Riders and the Bat Swarm, and it's got a decent amount of might, that being 9. So that's the list.
I like the theme because you encompass the books from when the Watcher and Goblins sprawled out the Pelennor fields. So I do like that aspect. So you have me there. No.
I mean, me. I always take themey lists.
It
Instead
of the Corsairs showing up, the Watcher like pulls up with goblins on its back to the docks.
Yeah. Summon the Kraken. No, but it is like an optimize, like it is like the list we reviewed today. It's like that with one purpose, which of course is get in, you Soladin's banner, the Watcher does shenanigans, shut down stuff, and you don't get shot. Like it's a little more successful, I would say, in that sense, because it's, you know exactly what you're doing with it. And even you telling us about it too, like you don't have to go too deep into it. Like we know what you're going to do with it. And it kind of, it's reminiscent of many, I want to say like European lists that I see, or that I did see at Articon, where you have like an elite, you usually see with Lady of Light, elite force with these small shenanigans, don't get hit, then you get, and everything synergizes together. So it does seem like an evil force of that, which I appreciate. I think the numbers are low, but for what you're doing, it's totally fine. Yeah.
Well,
It's a very focused list.
Yeah.
Focus is perfect way to say it.
I've played 800 point armies with 30 models, so I think 38 is fine. I know generally in the American meta, you guys like to take 45, 50. Every time I take a 45 to 50 model army or even larger, I just get bored because of the sheer number of models that I'm just throwing forward and grinding against. So I like to take very hero heavy armies that are more your mid 30s to low 30s. And this is definitely something I'd consider.
Yeah, it'd be terrifying to come across. I think the only weakness is those scenarios like domination or something that's spread out, is your army does work really well. It synergizes together, but it in a sense has to be together. Mm-hmm. But like if that ball of death was coming at me, and the ball of death's coming, and then the Kool-Aid man bursts out, hey, and like that's the Watcher in this scenario. Like, that's just like,
can I just say, I love these scenarios you come up with in your head where you see a Kool-Aid man bumping it.
It's totally.
You just have so many great quotes like that.
You're picturing Evan's army, like everyone visualize this on Spotify. So you got a Roman legionnaire army marching.
Very descriptive.
You're shooting arrows at it, but of course Shadowlord blocks it because they got that tortuga or whatever, marching, and you're like, oh no, like I have this fear, what's gonna happen? Then boom, Kool-Aid man pops out of nowhere and starts throwing all your models all over the place, and picks up one of them, and you're like, no, and drags him into the deep and kills him. Like that's basically what this army is.
I need you now to convince Jesse to make the Watcher into Kool-Aid man.
Oh my gosh, with googly eyes.
With Blue Man Drummers.
Yes.
Yes.
See, now this is that wins a tournament for best model. Kool-Aid man.
You should just start a whole company, Denethor, Guy Fiorani, like all these different like models that are just boom. You've got the Marauder with
just
like
a Gatling gun. All the way around the base.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we'll go on to Rob's list next.
Okay, so I also brought an 800 point list. Mine is very different from Evan's. It is pure Moria. In fact, I took the Depths of Moria Legendary Legion. So it's about as thematic as you can get for Moria. It's very ironic because, as you know, I actually don't like this Legion very much for existing, but it's also literally the way that I think Moria should look, because it's basically movie Moria, right? But anyway, so I have 4 warbands. The first is led, obviously, by the Balrog, who is the leader. And he has 6 goblins with shield, 5 goblins with spear, 2 prowlers, 2 black shields, and a black shield drum. And then the second warband is led by a goblin captain. And he has 5 goblins with shields, 5 goblins with spears, and 2 prowlers. The third warband is actually identical. So a captain with 5 shield goblins, 5 spear goblins, and 2 prowlers. And then the fourth warband is led by a captain with 5 goblins with shields, 5 goblins with spears, and 1 prowler, for a total of 56 models. So the big thing here is that the Legion makes that drum really good, because 1, it's battlefield wide, and 2, it actually counts as a drum or as a banner for scenario purposes. And in this particular context, I decided to take the black shield one because I like the idea that, it can kind of run away from threats, right? That it's not completely stationary. And especially if you run up against like a Maelstrom, you want it to be able to kind of move away to where you need it, since you don't actually really care about the positioning, since its effect is battlefield wide, which, as we talked about, has necessitated the choice of 2 black shields that are literally there just to essentially pick up the drum should one of them die, right? But it gets to a point in a list like this where the extra 6 points you're losing for the 2 black shields is 1 goblin. And when you're at 56 models, it doesn't really matter. I'd rather have the protection, even though the model is suboptimal. And other than that, I mean, it's got 3 captains to get as much might in there as possible. And basically they're there as a move/march battery for the Balrog itself, because that's really what it needs to be. From a competitive standpoint, it's going to have some tough scenarios, but at the end of the day, this list never gives up secondary points ever, right? Because you've got the banner, you're never going to be broken unless you kill the Balrog, which means you're also not giving up any leader points. So to fight the list, they really have to take on the Balrog, which is kind of where you want to be in a list like this. You don't want them to avoid it with all of the things that they would otherwise just run through your goblins with. And the Balrog himself has that anti-shooting rule, so like he's a little bit more protected against just randomly getting shot to death. And other than that, you've just got this swarm of goblins that are going to wear you out and drag you down. And then you've got the Prowler sprinkled in to, you know, take on maybe some of the tougher targets, or going to be thrown into combats where you really need to kill some more stuff. The big weakness, obviously, is that this list can't take the bat swarms, but given the buffs that you get to the Balrog itself and the fact that you kind of have to funnel things into him anyway, and he's generally not afraid of much to begin with, I think that's okay. And so I think that this is as Moria as you get. It focuses on the Balrog and as many goblins as you can kind of cram into an 800 point list. So I think it would be cool.
I think I was like, it's not. But like when you mentioned that secondary victory, like points for tournaments, like I look back at all the tournaments I've won and actually placed, and it's not because I came and I dominated. It's because I negated people victory points the whole tournament. Like
and
that.
This is the ultimate list for that. Yeah,
exactly. Like that point is like, you see the Legendary Legion, and maybe that's what makes the Legion so good. Like initially I'm like, why would I bring that? Like you take out all the tools, Balrog's the only hitting power. But when you say it like that and you explain it like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like bring this to a 6-game tournament. Like this is really good.
In the tournament guide, right? You it's all about getting 3 or more victory points, right? Like that's how they determine if you get like a major victories. If you have like, I believe if you have 3 more than your opponent, so the ability to negate actually helps you get higher up in the tournaments, because you're just going, okay, if I hold you to X amount, all I need to get is this amount, and I get the maximum points. So negating is equally as important as getting points.
It's the art of a small victory.
You're having to get through 55 goblins and a Balrog, right? So like it's got the numbers, it's got a big scary beastie that is not afraid of too many things in the game. The biggest weakness is probably going to be Maelstrom missions, but that's why you have all of these captains in there to just like show up and march where you need them and try to keep people together. The drum really doesn't matter where you place it, you just keep it alive. And so when you come to a tournament, especially with the new match play guide where you have like the buckets, you're probably hitting more favorable missions than unfavorable ones to begin with. And then with smart play and with the ability to basically negate all secondary victory points for your opponent, I think it can do a lot of work. And I think that when people realize that, you'll see it showing up more often as well.
Yeah, because it has that horde effect, which works really good for most of the scenarios. But then the effect of when you're right up in the face, like Contest the Champion, sweet, like give me the victory. Like, you know what I mean? Or just like things straight up in the line, like even the menacing like of the Balrog. Like if you go up against a top player, they're gonna know how to like negate it with the heroic defense and all these different things. But you come up against people and they're just terrified of it. Most people, because what the Balrog can do, and they just like run away or whatever. So I was shocked actually.
I mean, who doesn't want to see a Balrog on the list? I mean, I love seeing the Balrog. Really, I mean, maybe not against him, but admittedly, I just, anytime I see a Balrog at a tournament, it's so cool because you don't see him that often. And obviously, he gets a boost in the new edition, so it'll make him more likely. I love seeing the Balrog.
Well, he's also such a iconic piece. Like when I think of
Yeah.
Moria, I think of the Balrog. And so it would be hard for me not to take the Balrog in a Moria list just on that alone. And I feel like the
Balrog
Legendary
scene in the
Legion definitely makes that
movies-
viable.
The Balrog scene in the movies might be my favorite scene in the entire trilogy, or I guess all 6 movies, honestly. When he comes out, he looks so cool. The Balrog is one of my favorite models in the entire game. It's such an awesome model.
Yeah, to see fear in Aragorn and Gandalf's
Yes.
eyes in the same scene is like, oh shoot, like
When you
something's
see
about to
Gandalf
happen.
going like, "Oh God, I can't deal with this. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do now?" Like
And he like gets triggers and starts yelling at Aragorn some random stuff. And you're like, wow, this guy's really like tilted.
yeah.
Well, and even like the big heroes, right? Like outside of Aragorn, who's just incredible, but a lot of them, if you can whip them over the battle line and kind of trap them with the Balrog and some Prowlers behind your line, they're going to run out of might. And you're eventually just going to start grinding through their heroes. So, and I mean, the Balrog being natural fight 10, even if you heroic strike all the way up to a 10, it's still a 50-50, right? And then what are you going to do even if you win? You're not hurting it, right? And if you're not hurting it, then the army's fearless. Everything around it gets +1 fight, right? So you've got goblins that are fight 3 and fearless and bannered, because the banner is, universal to the table. And so like, it makes things around it better. It itself isn't afraid of much. I actually think it has a lot of legs. The one thing that I always kind of go back and forth on this list was whether you should include the Black Shield Shamans to start shattering weapons. But then I realized I'd rather just have more goblins and marches, because like, who cares about the opponent's weapons? I could see it useful for banners, but just whip the banner and kill it, right? So I don't know. I think it has legs. I think that maybe it doesn't win an Articon, but it certainly wins the majority of its games, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's something that you're like, okay, if you're building an Articon team, because Articon's coming up, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. If you're building an Articon team, have one of your members bring this list, because they'll probably win 4 games out of 6. Like potentially 5, you know what I mean? Like,
and if they get lucky on scenarios, maybe they go 5 or even 6, right? Because a lot of it will come down to what they draw. So
yeah, at a larger event Articon, like larger points, I mean. But one big thing too is like we're talking about, it kills heroes, it gets heroes, it destroys monsters.
Yeah,
like the Balrog. Samir's taken him to like an event, and he's killed 2 eagles in 1 turn. Like you heroic. You whip an eagle and you kill it, heroic, and you go into another one. Like in Maelstrom battles, the Balrog's disgusting because you can't charge something, but he can whip something in and then heroic combat and charge and like throw a battle line, like do a whole bunch of stuff.
He literally like scorpions and then like batarangs, right? Well, and then in the Legion, he also has that set something ablaze rule. So like you pick up a hero, you set it on fire, its horse is gone, it's now on fire, right? It just has a lot of tools,
and it's protected against
really
siege weapons as well.
Right. So if you come up against the Siege Legion, which is very popular competitively, it's like, okay, the Balrog is hard to hit. If you shoot a goblin in front of it, it's not going to knock it over or anything, so you're not going to stop it. And then what? You're going to kill a bunch of goblins? Okay, right?
Yeah. So this Legendary Legion gives me Barad-dûr vibes, honestly. Just sort of, it's got that same idea of just you can't get any victory points or anything like that. And honestly, I don't really like it that much. Part of it is personal preference. Part of it is just, I think it is going to be super, super rare that you're going to win 5 or 6 games with this list, because there are ways of dealing with it. And those ways of dealing with it are to kill the goblins. And goblins are fight 2, and the Balrog can only be in one place at one time. So if you play against, let's say, something like 2 or 3 mounted heroes, and then like Gondor or something like that, maybe Faramir or something runs into the Balrog, calls a couple of heroic defenses, just takes up space, and then the rest of your guys run in, they call a bunch of heroic combats, they chop through your goblins, and then they kill like 20 to 30 goblins. And it doesn't matter if you're not broken, because your goblins are now outnumbered by Minas Tirith guys. And sure, the Balrog goes and munches on one guy a turn, but if you're playing an objective scenario like domination or reconnoiter or anything like that, I mean, it doesn't matter if the Balrog's still alive. You've lost the game. And I think this list definitely will automatically win some scenarios, like to the death, contest of champions. Like, you're great, you're doing fine. But just the fact that there are so many maneuverability based scenarios and it's so easy to kill so many goblins so quickly, I don't think it's a top tier competitive list. I think it'll do decently well, but I don't think it's up there.
Oh no, yeah, there's no, but I think like the discussion is it's a shocker like when you come against it because everybody's going to do that strategy. That was my main gripe with it even before like Rob said it, is like I didn't think it was any good. Like I'd always pick like a generic or a pure Moria list, not Legion over it because you can bring all the toys. But I think the negating victory points does have a big set, like it has a big importance to the discussion at like many tournaments, team tournaments, I would say, I guess, when you do need that guy to go 4-2 to add to the list of like, what is Articon, the top 5?
Top 4.
Top
4. But like you do need like, even if your lowest guy goes 4-2, like, and you have other people 4-2, like maybe 5-1 and possibly 6-0, like that's enough to get like top 3 as a team. And like even at last Articon that we attended, we did see that. We saw most of the teams have like a lot of those places. And you're like, oh wow, like I didn't see any member of that group in top 10 or top 5, but like you had a lot of those members go 4-2. So I think that's why I'd be like, yeah, someone.
Yeah, just to point out though, Articon is 600 points, and I don't think this list works at 600.
Well, I don't think you take this at 600 for sure. I actually think even as I play a lot of Minas Tirith and I would still be scared. I mean, it depends on scenario, obviously, but in so many scenarios, like the Balrog can only be so many places, but so can the heroes. And you get one bag whip heroic combat into a hero, and then they're on fire, and there's 15 goblins not dead, right? So, like, I think it has more legs than people give it credit. I don't think it's the best list in the game or something, but I think it definitely is one that you can take to a tournament and do pretty well with.
But it's back to that thing, like if a competitive player plays it, like they could do well with it. Like you saw the Dead Legion, and you're like, you go into the Dead Legion, you're like, okay, like I know all these gimmicks, like it's not really threatening. You're not going to place. But if you see like a good player actually know the mechanics of the game, know how to negate, because that is a lot of tournament play actually, is like just, you're not going to crush, you're going to negate. And so many times I see it, people are shocked when they destroy their opponent and then they roll the last dice. And you're like, okay, cool, I won 7-5. Like you know what I mean, like those type of games where you
I
play.
think so much of a tournament is really just 3 things, right? You got preparation, skill level, and luck, right? So you prepare to play the scenarios. Your skill level means you just don't make mistakes in games with your list. But then if you are the best player in the world with the best list and have terrible luck or like really bad matchups, because not every army can do everything perfectly. And if you hit 5 games of your worst scenario against your hard counter, or the flip side, it's going to really have an impact, right? And so this list might lean a little bit more heavily on that third bucket because like you really want to have better scenarios or better matchups. And there are some that are just going to crush you. But if you get, 5 good games, you've done the preparation with the list building and you're good with the list, right? I think it's got legs.
Yeah, and you got to think too, like 9-man per team at Articon, not 600, but let's say 800 potentially. Like that's one named hero out of like the whole thing. And like like your team is going to be picking all the top guys. And it's like one team member, just like take the Balrog and the Legion. Why not? Like give it a try. So yeah, we keep like beating that horse, but yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. We'll move into the next list. Rainier, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I've done something that I've never done before, and I'm taking 1,000-point army.
Ooh.
Yes. So this is themed, I guess. It's Misty Mountains Alliance. Ooh. And you'll probably see where this is going. So let me see if I can read my handwriting real quick. So here I go. So for Moria, I'm bringing Durbert's Hero of Valor. Accompanying him is 1 bat swarm and 14 goblins with shield. After that, I am taking 1 captain for heroic march, of course, in the might, with 6 shield goblins and 1 bear goblin, and then I'm taking 2 Moria black shield shamans. So I'm gonna bring some Harry Potter magic to the mix, and they're each warband they have 2 shielded goblins. And then after that, I'm gonna have the Watcher in the water. So that's my contingent for Moria. And then here I go a little to the north, and I'm bringing the Goblin King. Accompanying him is Golem and 17 goblins with pick. Another goblin captain with pick and 12 goblin captains with pick. And then a goblin mercenary captain with 12 mercenaries with pick. So the breakdown is 76 models, 15 might, and it has like a lot of tricks. So I'm going to try to isolate most of them. But the main tricks are you have the Watcher, which Matt, like, oh yeah, like he just pops out. You're scared of him. But like when he pops out and goes, oh yeah, like you're going to have 12 to 13 goblin mercenaries pop up with him and go, oh yeah. So he's going to have his little friends. I'm probably going to convert them to be rubber duckies. So like, bloop, like here, they all just pop up with them. So that's like, I toyed with the idea in the last episode, like goblin mercs with him. Like, why not try it? I have the Goblin King, which I was actually adding the Goblin Town to list. And I was like, this list is broken. Like all these guys are under for like price. Like what the heck? But Goblin King with Golem is like a perfect combo to take out any hero. And so alone nasty. To, yes, so nasty. Take out any hero. And then Goblin King also is terrifying with Harbinger from the Watcher. So like that makes him even that much scarier. You also have Durberts and a Bat. The Bat can combo with anything on the list. Ranging from Durberts, the Goblin King, the Watcher, even a Goblin Captain or anything. Like it can pop anywhere it wants to go. The Mercenaries is that kind of second wild card. I know I said I could pop them with the Watcher, but I can also pop them wherever I want for objective play, scenarios, anything like that. And then I feel like, yeah, all that heavy hitting. I'm basically bringing a Moria list. The Goblin Captain with Golem brings like a steroided goblin troll. So the cherry on the top I think is the 2 black shield shamans, and they are going to be devastating in this list because you have so much crap going on and you have no idea that like there's these 2 black shield shamans that can shatter anything, any weapons, tag team, or even burst through lines. I know we compared them to Barrow Whites in last episode, but we said these guys are like Barrow Whites that can kill troops also. Heavy defense troop, battle line, just boom, boom, boom. So I feel like I do have that. I spammed a lot of shields. People don't like the idea with Goblin Town and Moria because there's no like synergy there, but why not add just a ton of shields to like make it easier to defend against shooting, and you still have a ton of Goblin Town like shield walls wherever you want. So actually, yeah, I was initially writing it as like, oh, like, let me see if I can have like a Misty Mountain Alliance, but now I'm like, holy crap, like I want to take this sucker.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a nasty list. It kind of brings, it's like all of the good stuff that you can put into a list it has, right? Because you've got Goblin King Golem, which is just ridiculous. Then you've got Watcher Bat, which is also ridiculous. Then you've got Double Shatter, which is also ridiculous. And then you still have numbers, right? So it's just stupid good.
How many models did you have?
76. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So obviously my only complaint with this list is I think you should probably give some of the Moria goblins spears, because you have a whole lot of shieldmen just standing around not getting spear supported. And with hordes, especially with 76 models, you want a lot of spears because otherwise you're not going to be able to get them all in the fight. So I put some spears on the Moria Goblin Warriors. Obviously keep them as a front line just to protect against shooting, but give some of them spears. But other than that, I mean...
Yeah, I agree with it. When I heard
Scaly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like I was at the beach day and I was like, oh shoot, I gotta write a list for tonight. And I was like, oh, I got this.
So
I was like, oh, shield.
So I might also consider trying to find the points for a Goblin Shaman.
I
just
tried
to
that.
auto pass courage tests. It doesn't have to be with all the goblins, but
you know me, Evan. I'm like, I can have a horde or I can have a horde, and I wanted a horde. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's two that like one goblin, because I did toy with it. And initially I was gonna have one shaman, black shield, and one for the passing courage test. But then I was like, no, the double black shield shamans I feel is a lot scarier in the sense that, okay, like you have something terrifying, you don't want to engage, sweet, I don't want to engage too, boom, what is that? Tremor with two of them in battle lines, and then things can pop up and I can throw goblins at like whatever their mounted hero is or whatever. So I don't know, maybe that's just where I'm at too in this game, like competitively, where I'm like, I could balance it or I could lean in even harder. And I don't know. I feel like the shamans, like the double black shamans, are like lean a little harder to have that kind of pop, if that makes sense. But I do get that, and I did consider that actually.
yeah, I mean, part of the concern as well is if you break, for example, because sure, Durbers has a 12-inch stand fast, but he's courage 4, and he's not the most challenging to kill. And just having that fury will just help your army stick around after it breaks, because you don't have the Goblin Town thing of, you don't have a ridiculous amount of models, so it's hard for you to break. You are going to break, and you are going to break, I'd say, relatively often. And it's good to have countermeasures against that when you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd actually argue with that though, because anything that can potentially break my army is going to be very scared to engage, because everything that I have can kill anything mega. When it comes to heroes, I could even throw in, because the Watcher's just like I have a Watcher also, by the way. Like there's no need for it really in the list besides like, yeah, I could throw them in the back lines, kill things. So I do feel like this list can break the opponent pretty well. All it's maybe missing is a Spider Queen and Durbers.
I was thinking Corsairs. I was thinking that
Corsairs.
I'd be the one bringing
would just
Corsairs.
break this.
Oh man, you know how to get to Rainier
immediately.
when you say Corsairs.
Don't trigger me.
But like
don't.
hordes that are higher fight than this will kill the goblins very quickly, and then you will break. And it's not like, sure, the Watcher in the water can grab 3 or 4 models in a turn, but you have 60 more. You're not going to be able to deal with all of those models. And I think that's where this list will struggle, is hordes that are not even fight 4, but fight 3. That'll just cut it to shreds. But other than that, it's a super scary looking list.
Yeah. And then I'll just finish up on my list, and that'll be the episode. So my list is, I just went competitive on this. I'm going to be honest with you. It definitely has, you'll see why it's Moria, but it's very competitive. So my leader is Goblin King with Golem and 17 Goblin Warriors. I have a Goblin Town Captain with 12 Goblin Town Warriors. I have Durbers with 8 Goblins with Shields, 7 Goblins with Spear. I have a Spider Queen with 1 Fell Warg and a Bat Swarm. And I have a Cave Drake with 3 Moria Goblins with Shields and 3 Moria Goblins with Spears. So I have 58 models, 13 might. You have 3 big hitting heroes. You have a Cave Drake, the Goblin King, and the Spider Queen. You have a bunch of might. You have a March in there. You have 2 ways to prevent fight value in Golem and a Bat Swarm. And yeah, you just have a bunch of models with a bunch of might and big heroes. So that's my list.
How many points
This is like
800.
800.
This is like the perfect way to, I'm not perfect, but like this is a way like to like actually make this like the most optimized, I think, at an 800 point list.
Well, I wanted to use, because we talked about in the last episode, we talked about the Cave Drake. And I think the Cave Drake for its points is very, very, I wouldn't say underrated, but not utilized enough. And even though he has 1 might and he doesn't have the strike, he's still terrifying with 7 wounds and the ability to just
because I think that's what makes it
6
the Cave
wounds.
Drake.
Oh,
Cave
6
Drake
wounds,
puts it over, because it's like the Spider Queen on a bad day is going to get killed in 1 shot. the Cave Drake, you can literally just throw him at something and he'll survive most of the game, if not the whole game, while also putting a lot of offensive output. So like that's what I do like about the sense that you bring him, because he's just survives and kills stuff in his high defense. And then the Goblin Count is like, yeah, why not? Like, let me get a whole bunch of discounts.
Let me
They're
bump up my
so
numbers.
good. It's so dumb how good.
Yeah, I've never
Goblin
actually
Count
like written a list until now with it. I'm like what?
But like,
Yeah,
who was
Golem
what
for
were they
35 points,
thinking,
he has the
right?
ring.
Yeah,
The King for 130? You're saying what?
The King for 130, but what's amazing is you take a Goblin Town captain with 12 goblins, right? And it ends up being like, I think 83 points. And you just go, so a whole warband of goblins with a captain is 83 points. You can take so many big things with that.
and they all spear support.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they all piercing strike. You can double piercing strike.
Yeah,
Well, you can't double it. You can only do it in the
Oh,
front.
well, you can do it from the back.
but still 4 points for strength 4 supporting model. Like that's like what the heck?
ridiculous.
Like, and then like you would think that they'd balance it with making it like just a horde mentality, but they're like, no, let me throw the Goblin King and make him completely unstoppable with Golem. Like,
I think that's the part of the list that needs changing. Is I don't know why Golem is in there. He should be like a Wanderers in the Wild type character, right? But having him as an independent hero with the ring with the Goblin King, who is already objectively like too good for his points, is just ridiculous, right?
Yeah, and it's like totally unthematic because you have like them like hoppling together, and Goblin, it's like Saruman Grima like type vibes, and it's like that's not really how it goes. But that said, like your list, I feel like is really optimized. I originally was going to write an 800 list and make it like that, but then I was like, but the Watcher. So,
I genuinely
agree. I like the list
tournament.
competitively speaking a lot.
I would genuinely take this to a tournament, and I think I'm not saying I would. It would depend on who I go against and all that kind of stuff, but I genuinely think I could do pretty well with this list because you've got 3 really big heroes to fight against, bunch of might, bunch of models to hold the line, and then you have 2 ways of mitigating fight value: one in the front, and then one if it needs to get in behind. I just think it'd be difficult to beat this list as well.
yeah, and I don't know if it's because Articon's coming along, but my mindset isn't right now thinking competitively like bring something that's going to win every single game. My mindset is stuck like bring something that's going to contribute to your team. And of course we say this, that all of our lists are like 800 and above, but like if this was an Articon like mindset, like that
it'll be different. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, what we have to keep on, we can make whatever lists we want. Obviously, we're not restricted to do 800 and above kind of a thing. But what people who maybe don't play in the US have to understand is we almost never have games below 700 points ever.
Yeah,
so there's just no point of writing lists at that many points because it's not going to come up in unless you play a friend at that many points.
Well, I think writing lists for Articon almost feels weird, right? With like the lower points level, you're like, I'm out of practice on this.
Yeah, and I think a reason for viewers is like in America, typically if you're going to a tournament, you're traveling like way yonder. Like you're getting a hotel, you're paying a lot of money. So like there's a sense in the States that if you travel all that time, like you don't want to just bring like 1/18 of your collection. You actually want to put together something that you're going to have like a lot of fun to play, not just, So like in the sense, like, let's say Articon mindset, let's pretend like it's 800. Like if I was a team captain, I'd be like, take that. Like, like that's gonna produce well, even if like the person, well, it depends on the player, but like if you're a good player, like that's gonna do well at just about all the scenarios.
So one thing I thought was really interesting, and I wonder what that says, is out of the 4 lists, in 3 of them, Moria was essentially the junior partner, and it's more about the heroes than it is about the troops. So in a way, Moria is like the ultimate like soup component competitively, is what it sounds like. Yeah.
And I think the problem with Moria really is you look at them and you go, okay, they're heroes. I've always had this opinion of the best armies are the ones who have people of points value at every level. And the problem with Moria is they don't really have upper mid-tier heroes. They kind of have Durbers to the Cave Drake. So there's an 80-point gap where there's nothing really filling that spot for heroes. So it's like if you had Faramir to Elisar, and there was no Boromir, right?
I don't want to live in that world.
so it becomes that thing where there's no, you need those middle tier upper echelon heroes, but aren't too expensive, because that's what makes these lists so good.
I
So
feel like they have the same
that
problem in their units also, because you have like really base cheap that do like their defense, like semi good defense, that's all they're good at, and then you have really expensive crap ones. Like if they had a range, like making the black shields like at least good Moran and semi Moran and good, like then it'd be like like I can make this work.
If they had, in my opinion, if they had 100 to 150 point heroes, you would see this army taken as a whole way more often, because they need something that can fight against other big heroes, but not too expensive to be a dragon or a Balrog.
That said, I think it does have the components to do really, really well if you build it.
Oh yeah,
because
you can do well
so
with it. I think for it to go to that next tier, you need those 100 to 150 point heroes.
I also think part of the problem, and you can have an entire episode on this, so I don't want to dwell on it, but just some of the Hobbit armies raising like the power level, right? So like in some ways, Moria was semi-invalidated as a pure army by Goblin Town, because you essentially have Moria is Balrog plus a bunch of goblins is now Goblin Town with Gollum and Goblin King with 3 times as many goblins, and so it's like Moria +3, right, kind of thing. And so when you're looking at it, I still think the Legion obviously has legs, but by and large, if you're looking competitively, you're like, yeah, I'll take the Goblin King and Gollum and this many models, and then the Moria, I'll take the good stuff out of it and like plug it in, with the bat swarms and some of the characters to other things that it'll complement. So,
yeah, being totally honest, like I, for the life of me, cannot write a pure Moria list that I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's strong. I would take that to a tournament. I just can't, because it's always like this list can ally with so many things, and I can just grab this warband from this army list, and this is better than whatever I'm taking instead of this in the pure Moria list. And I mean, obviously the prime example of that is why take a drum when you can just throw in Suladan with some Harad guys? Yeah. Why take these Moria Black Shields when you could throw in the Mouth of Sauron and 15 Morannon Orcs or Black Numenorians?
Yeah, why take a cave troll when you could throw in the Goblin King and like Gollum?
Why take Watcher in the Water when you can take the Kool-Aid Man?
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
No, but I think Evan brings a good point about Suladan too as well, because what's the one downside to the Balrog being your leader is it's an easy VP to take off if you get one wound on him, and it allows the Balrog to do whatever he wants now if you make Suladan leader. Now you may not do that, of course, but I'm saying it gives you an option to do so if you wanted to just keep Suladan in the back and protect him, and then let the Balrog do whatever he wants.
The other benefit, it gives him a banner reroll,
and it gives him a banner's roll.
I would say I wouldn't take the drum if you're taking a big monster. I would just automatically pick Suladan, because usually the big monsters in the Moria list have barely any might points. So you want to give them that banner reroll to get an extra die and increase their chances of winning the fight. So yeah, it's really hard to make a pure Moria list and not just go, ooh, I want to grab that from this or something like that.
And because they're allied with almost everyone, it just makes it hard not, because it's not. I think they're red allies with what, two armies, if I'm correct.
Sure,
I would have to check the matrix.
But like I feel like the discussion, like Moria actually has so many monsters and cool tricks that we should reverse it and be like, okay, if you're taking a different army, like let's pick from the Moria pool. Just bring Durberts and a couple like shenanigans. Like we should, like we're always thinking we have to like pick site outside of it. Like let's, I don't know, think instead of like building a Moria army, build a different army and come back to Moria, I guess.
Yes. So Moria is red with, unfortunately, it's red with 2 armies that you love to ally into everything, which is of course Barad-dûr and Sharky's Rogues, the 2 best alliance options.
Oh, so man.
I mean, effectively that you can ally with everything that you would want to ally with.
Yeah, because it makes sense Sauron not fighting with the Balrog, but it doesn't make sense the Balrog fighting with what Mahood? Like what?
Don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
What's going
Sharky's
on?
You know
rogues
that iconic
already has
scene where
lost
the
enough.
Corsairs fought with the Balrog, right? You know that super iconic
Yeah,
scene.
well, because the Balrog's on fire because he came from way down in the desert.
He
Like,
lit their
came easily.
torches so they could see the way.
Well, if
He
you remember in
did.
the movies where they're getting shot at with those arrows, those are actually arbalesters. I mean, it's a
Yes.
blink and you'll miss it moment, but they're down there.
Mhm. Yeah, because they're small arrows. You think that they're small arrows, they're not. They're crossbow bolts.
Yeah, exactly.
Just rewatch it, you'll see it. It's there.
Like we know
Um,
this stuff, guys. We're experts.
Yeah, but I think that wider in a wider sense, the alliance matrix in a way being so loosey goosey that's why you see those clearly superior pieces everywhere, right? Your Lady of Light, your Suladan, your Goblin King. It's just it's too easy to soup a list that's just better for the sum of its parts in competitive play than it is to, in many cases, squeeze the juice out of a pure list.
Mm.
Okay.
But let's fight for the pure. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Rob, I know you
let's-
play pure and you play just green. Like I do the same. Like, let's make it work.
Well, actually, like,
I'm sorry,
whenever I get
what
to
is the
start playing
pure army
tournaments
list?
again. What's that?
Never
Yeah,
heard of it
right.
before.
One of my challenges for myself when I can start playing games again is I just want to try to take nothing but different legendary legions to tournaments and like get the most out of them. Because like all of you, my instinct is, what is this list and how do I whittle it down to the most like optimized little concoction with all the right allies so that it does the most focused thing? And it's almost hard for me not to do that. So being restricted by legendary legions that are sometimes suboptimal gives me like a new challenge for myself almost, right?
Yeah, it
I'm
kind of
like-
makes you better too, because I feel like I got better in the game when I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play lists that like are kind of like tilted. They have like a really good punch, but they have a huge weakness, and it does make you really good at that. You have like a really low defense army. You come against shooting, you have to minimize that. We have like nothing that can handle terror. You have to minimize that. Like it does. I feel, I don't know, for myself, it's made me play a little better.
Yeah.
I
definitely-
genuinely might take the 9 to a tournament or the Riders Legion. That might be the first thing I take. I think it'd be a ton of fun.
Oh man, that'll be one of those things where you're going to either win really big or lose really big.
Yeah.
But probably get punched by someone.
But you don't
Yeah.
you don't care. You don't
But
like
you
you're
don't
just
care.
having fun.
Yeah,
It's
I've been,
thematic
You put on your
anyway.
Band-Aid and go.
I've been
Yeah.
taking Kirith Ungol recently,
Oh,
and
I'd love to take that.
despite what you've been hearing online about how it being so great competitively, it's not. I'm sorry to say, it's just not. I mean, part of the problem is I played 2 Maelstrom missions, and Shelob likes to roll a lot of ones on those. So 90 points of my army was gone. But I mean, the Mordor Uruk, they don't do enough. But it's a lot of fun to play. I think so. I played against my father with Corsairs, and it was obviously a ridiculous challenge because he's got all these strength 3 throwing weapons and crossbows that can murder me and fight 4 on everyone. And I've only got like 12 Urukai who are a fight 4. And I mean, it was really challenging to play, but I managed to figure out a way to win. And it shows that like, even if your army is a bit underpowered, you can still use your knowledge of the game and perhaps some good dice rolling, because I was rather lucky in the end because I managed to just get enough objectives to where I won the game. But I mean,
comes down to those 2 buckets. Skill and luck are both, like equally large parts of winning games and tournaments. So, a lot of people will win a tournament because they just happen to hit that, triforce of things really well. But skill and luck can swing things very, very determinatively, even with a less than optimal list. So,
and the best skill is to like try. I know it's impossible most times, but try to position yourself to where even when you have bad luck, it's going to turn out well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't chance anything unless you have to.
Yes. On the other hand, with those types of lists, you have to be prepared to lose, because the last game I played, I drew heirlooms, and my opponent, even though I spread out my army all across the board, my opponent managed to grab the objective to where my army wasn't. And because the only maneuverable model I had that was over 6 inches of movement was Shelob, I just wasn't able to win that. And I mean, that happens with armies like that. So you just gotta be prepared.
And the luck also just comes in with matchups, right? Too, like a bad matchup on a bad scenario is going to be a much harder climb than, you know, the opposite. So, and that's happened to me too on heirlooms specifically. Heirlooms I don't love competitively because there is just that random
Everyone
element
hates
you can do
heirlooms.
nothing about, right?
My father loves
So-
heirlooms, and I cannot imagine why, but apparently he likes that luck effect. I really don't. I personally think it's a fine casual game. Like you're always going to have these cool stories of like picking up the heirlooms and clutching victory from the jaws of defeat. But in tournaments, it's really just not the best because there's too much luck in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning into today's episode. Let us know in the comment section below if you have another army you'd like for us to go over in future episodes, as well as any other ideas for episodes you'd like for us to go over, and any lists you'd like for us to review in future episodes as well. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.